Wow, it has been a minute or two since I have talked to you guys in this league or made a video. I've been really busy with my football leagues as it was bowl season and we had to wrap up the playoffs and all of that good stuff. Plus, I was pretty busy at my job, the holidays. Pretty busy time of year for a lot of people. But I wanted to get back here and start talking some hoop because that is going to be the focus over the coming months. And if you guys have been paying attention to the league, I know you guys have a lot of other things going on, but if you've been paying attention to this league, you'll see that I have outlined a lot of big changes for next season, but I think they're changes that are going to be beneficial to this league. They're going to make this league a lot more interesting, and I'll get into those changes a little bit here today. Just wanted to comment on the weather really quick, as I always do. It is colder than a witch's you know what in December, and it's indeed very chilly at night here in Southern California. But the days, on the other hand, are very pleasant. I'm not so sure about today, though. We have a lot of cloud cover. We've had a lot of sun the last few days, and so by midday, it's like almost 70 degrees. I'm out riding my bike and in a t-shirt. But today, a little cloudy. I'm not sure if we're gonna have a really warm day. I guess next week it's going to get into the 70s, though, so I'm liking that. Right around Super Bowl every year, it seems to be kind of warm here in San Diego, so that's always a good time. Of course, it's never terrible here, but it is cold at night. It's as cold as it is in places north. Like, I'm from Portland, or at least I lived a lot of my life in Portland, and I tell you, nights there are very similar to nights here in terms of temperature. But of course, there it doesn't get very warm during the day. It just stays kind of the same temperature as it was at night. Whereas here, yeah, you get a full on nice, beautiful semi summer like day, and that's why I love San Diego. At any rate, let's get down to the business at hand. I have the standings on screen right here, the top six being shown. As you can see, Houston Rockets, that's William Slavy's team. He's having a great year, and this best ball thing is suiting him, and he's got a pretty talented roster and well deserved first place there. But I don't think that's going to change much next year in light of all the salary cap changes that we're going to make, the $220 million cap. I don't think a lot is going to change in that respect because this is a very talented team that he has here, led by John Morant, who's now back off of his suspension, among others. We can get into that another time. I think I really wanted to focus on some of the changes, though, in terms of the salary cap and those kind of rules. But real quickly here, let's just talk about the other teams in the top six. You got Fort Wayne having a surprisingly good season. That's Ben Johnson's team. He is 30-7 right now. Great season going on there. Showtime, that's one of Phil's teams, Phil Johnson's teams, 29-8. They're always dangerous. And they are followed by the San Francisco Warriors, another one of Phil's teams. These two teams, Showtime and San Francisco, squared off for the championship last year, with Showtime winning in 7. After that, the Guardians are fifth place. Guardians, a great team as well. Jeff Just, he was in the playoffs last year, had one of the better teams in the league, and he's pretty much reproducing last year's results, and his team is always quality. And then the San Diego Saints, that's my team, coming in at sixth. Now, there is a lot of talk about moving to just 10 teams next year, maybe 12. I might go as high as 12, and that all depends on how much interest I get when I put the league out there in Fantrax forums. I don't have a lot of faith that I'm going to attract a lot of attention there. It's not really working out too well so far. There's a lot of competition, a lot of other leagues out there that are they're money leagues, and a lot of people seem to be moving towards those. They want to make money playing basketball, whereas I'm more of a realist. I just like playing the game. I don't really like playing it for money per se, because I don't really think there's a lot of money to win at it anyway. And I want to make a league that's interesting, and so it's not about money with me. I do offer up a nice trophy for the winner, something to remember your great season by. And in the future, I want to say that putting together a great team in this league is going to become a lot more fun and a lot more challenging and a lot more interesting. I say challenging, but that shouldn't spook anybody because it's really not that challenging. I mean, I think we all know the good players. You're just going to have to adhere to a $220 million cap, which isn't going to be that difficult to do, especially in light of all the talent that we're going to have, you should be able to assemble a very good team with $220 million. You will have to find those players, however, that are making less than $10 million per season, because you're not going to be able to just fill your team up with a bunch of star players who are well known, who are already making in excess of $20 million. They're making $20 to $50 million. You can't have a roster full of those guys because you would easily go over the cap. You will have to find your quality young players, guys under rookie contracts, and other players that are like role players that are, late 20s, but they fill a valuable role for their teams. They play very well per minute. And I wanted to show you guys, in case you haven't been paying attention to the site, I put up some information here on the message board post. Hold on here. Bear with me as I find it. It's right here. So let's see. We've got, I'm going to make the screen smaller so I can navigate quicker. Here we go. This one right here, Spot Track, I believe is the name of the website. We'll take you there to Spot Track. The opening page shows you every team, a link to every team, and let's just click on one for the fun of it. Let's pick, let's see here. I'm going to go with a well-known team. Let's go with, how about the Lakers? Everybody knows the Lakers. So here at the Lakers page, you'll see all the players for the team, what they're making this year. But when you click on their link, you can see what they're going to make in future seasons. So we're looking at LeBron James. And as you can see right here, I guess there's a player option. That's what this green button means. This player has an option to pick up at $51.41 million to be paid by the Lakers in the 24-25 season. And then after that, he's an unrestricted free agent. You can go straight up here again. Just go to NBA, click it, and then you go into here and you can get other teams. You can pick up their team rosters. So I'm going to go to Boston here. Let's have a look at Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum this year is making about $32.6 million, as you can see. And over here, the 24-25 season, he's slated to make $34.84 million. So he's making $32.6 right now, $34.84 next year. He has an option that he can exercise for the 25-26 season at $37 million. There's a good chance he probably wants to renegotiate, being that's going to be the prime of his career. But you never know. Maybe $37 million is enough for him. Maybe he likes playing in Boston. But you'll get the hang of the notations on this site. There's not much to know, really. Pick up another player just for fun here. I'll pick up one that I know from the Orlando Magic. That would be Gaga Bitadze. As soon as I can find Orlando. Bitadze is a interesting player because he's very productive per minute right now. And I believe he is, oh boy. Hold on, I'm going to Control F to find this guy faster. There he is. All right, Gaga Bitadze this year making a very reasonable $2.06 million. And as you can see, next year he is slated to be an unrestricted free agent. So what he makes is anybody's guess, but he is only going to be 25 years old. And if he continues to play well as he is doing this year, he's possibly going to be in line for at least a $10 million contract. These are the things you're going to have to consider when you're putting together your ideas, formulating your plans for the future in this league. Now, in the offseason, excuse me here, hold on as I get everything pulled up here. I just want to get you guys back to the top 6 standings. Okay, in the offseason, these contracts, these salaries are going to be updated. And I will do it once a month starting in early July because contracts are being negotiated throughout the offseason. I will keep updating contracts until the beginning of October. And at that point, I'm going to stop doing it because at that point, it's just getting too close to the season. And I want everybody to be able to submit their keeper list based on the contracts that are on record. And I don't want any changes coming after that so that it confuses the situation. So on the 1st or so of October, that will be the final contract update. And those contracts that are in place at that time will be solidified for the upcoming season. They'll be locked at those prices. And that way you can go about making your keeper list. If you go over here to the commissioner message that I've put up, you'll see the changes that I have outlined for next season. And one of them is no roster limit. So you're only going to be limited by your $220 million cap. And you will have to carry a minimum of 12 players. You can go below 220 during the offseason, obviously, but when it comes to your keepers, you will have to stay at 220 million or less. Also, I'm going to eliminate the idea of only 6 veteran keepers and as many rookie keepers as you want. It's just going to be straight up cap space. You could keep as many players as you want. They could be veteran status, rookie status, doesn't matter. Just stay at that $220 million cap or below it. And you know what? Essentially, I think it's going to be the same thing as what we had in place before with the 6 veteran keepers and unlimited rookie keepers. I looked at it, and it just seems to me that just going with $220 million in cap space is going to be sufficient to keep everybody from over hoarding great players, talent. You're going to be limited by their salaries, and you might have a cheap guy this year, but if he's becoming an unrestricted free agent next year, he's probably going to be out of your price range. You're going to have to drop one of your veterans, your high-priced veterans, and make some tough decisions. It's going to be a lot of fun having to deal with the $220 million cap, especially in a team of only 10 or 12 teams where there's a lot more talent available to us. There's going to be a lot of players making 30 million plus that are going to be free agents, I would imagine, because they're just not performing quite good enough to make a roster, to really be worth that salary that they're making. They're not going to be, you know, producing at a level that justifies a $36 million salary. But at the same time, injuries might happen and teams are going to be desperate, in the second half of the season. And they might be willing to let go of a guy who's going to miss the entire rest of the season with some horrible injury, who was making maybe $20-30 million. Get rid of that guy and pick up one of these guys that's on the free agent market who is healthy, making that same kind of money, and you can keep your season going in that way. It'll be a lot of fun as we swap out players. Essentially, you'll be able to trade players with the free agent market. And of course, you have to let somebody go who had a knee injury, perhaps. He's a good player. He makes $35 million. Yeah, he becomes a free agent. That's part of the deal. Now you're going to have to go and compete with other teams to get that player back when he does get healthy. That's just the way it goes. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's just adds to the fun. We're swapping out players with the free agent market. It's like making trades, basically. And as for trades, I'm going to start right now. I made this note today on the message board talking about, let's just go with the 220 million cap starting now. You can make trades as long as you're under 220 million. So there's a lot of teams that are above 220. For them to make trades, they're going to have to dump a lot of salaries. For teams that are below it, yeah, it's going to be easier for you to make moves, but 220 million is going to be the cap starting now, and that applies to trades. No more worrying about getting within 20% of salaries, like we were doing in the past. Seems like nobody really liked that idea, and it's pretty obvious because we've had very little trade activity in this league. Just look at this post I made if you haven't already done it. It talks about all the things I wanted to change for next year, and these are pretty straightforward. There's not a lot going on there with these changes. We've got the 48-minute positions. If you look at these box scores I've been posting, you should do that. Go here. I'm doing them every week. And it just shows you basically how your team will fill out a box score. I'm going to pull up the Saints here. You might have to adjust the size of it sometimes, but at any rate, here's the Saints box score. You can print these out very easily. I suggest you do that if you have a printer. Makes it very nice for you to be able to look at these. And I'm going to make these spreadsheets with salaries during the offseason and send them out to you individually. Just, to help you out making your decisions, just to be, a good commissioner. I want to give you guys all the information you need. But as you can see here, I'll just go over the box score real quick here. This category here, minutes, that's NBA minutes he played. PM stands for the primary minutes he played. That's his primary position, which is point guard in the case of DeJounte Murray. he played 37 of his minutes at primary position. Secondary would be secondary minutes, secondary position. In the case of Kawhi Leonard, you see he played 18 minutes at his primary position, which is small forward. He played 17 minutes at his secondary position, which is power forward. And over here, you can see how many fantasy minutes he got, which is the sum total of these two numbers, primary minutes, secondary minutes. Then that's his fantasy point score, which is basically this score right here, his fantasy points per game divided by his fantasy or his total minutes multiplied by his fantasy minutes. And then this category, the last one that says 48M, that's 48 minute stats. This tells you what each player would score if they had played 48 minutes based on how many points they scored in a game and their minutes breakdown. It's basically to give you an idea really how good your players are. And when I put these box scores together, I also normalize them, basically, which means I round to the nearest whole number. I found that it makes no difference, if ever, makes no difference in the box score result. We will go with ties, by the way. I'm not going to tie break. If two teams are tied with a score, it's just going to go down as a tie in the standings, just for simplicity purposes. It does take time to do these box scores, and I have other things to do, but I really want to go with this system, even though it does take more work, because it's so much more realistic, and I think it's going to make things a lot more interesting in this league. But I go through and I round their fantasy points per game down to the nearest number. I round their minutes, and then the resulting scores that come through, I round those to the nearest whole number, and I do the same thing with 48-minute stats. And then the last thing I do is sort the columns based on how many minutes the player played. So the player with the most minutes is going to be at the top, with the least minutes at the bottom. I even include your players that did not play. They got maybe minutes in NBA, but scored no fantasy minutes, and so on and so forth. And I also include their 48-minute stats for you to analyze. Down here is your team's final score. This is your team's minutes in the game. You have as many as 240 minutes to fill. And as you can see, the Saints got all 240. If this number is smaller than 240, it means that you missed some minutes because of injuries or lack of depth. Pretty straightforward there. And other than that, I made the mistake of doing that. Hold on, let me just get this back to normal. Oh boy, that always messes things up okay, here we go. We're good. Yeah, I got to remember always to use that, because when I do the little spread with my fingers on the mouse pad, it overreacts, basically. At any rate, you can go back and check everybody's box scores. Next year, I am going to use these box scores to change our fantasy scores for our teams. So what will happen is on Monday, you'll see a certain point total for your team, which is going to be reflected of your entire team. But that's not your final box score. That's not your final score for your fantasy team. It's going to change. Once I get the box score done, I go in and I adjust the results, and then your records will be reflected in those results. It takes me anywhere from Monday to possibly up to Wednesday, depending on my schedule, to do this. Pretty boring stuff I'm rambling on about right now, but I had a lot to cover, and I'm just going to leave it at that for now. I'm going to come back and talk a little bit more about this stuff. I encourage you guys' interactions, in chat. Just tell me what you think. But quite honestly, I think, I've given this a lot of thought, and I really like the ideas I've come up with. I would say give it a try next year. It's a pretty easy league to run. You'll also have the ability to rank your players if you want. So you can put guys who are very efficient ahead of guys who play more minutes. Or you could just let me auto rank your players, and I'll do that based on the season statistics, their rank, basically. The players rank in terms of the fantasy league scoring system, and then they'll fill the box score based on that ranking. That's kind of like a best ball scenario. But because we're rewarding efficiency, it might be a good idea for you guys to send me a ranking list each week for your team. Putting guys that are, doing very well per minute ahead of guys who play more minutes. There'll be times when you have players like that are going to be very valuable. Guys only average maybe 12 minutes a game, maybe even only 7 minutes a game. But in those minutes, they're just lighting it up. Wouldn't hurt to put that guy ahead of your guy who's a normal starter in the NBA, guy that's averaging 35 minutes. wouldn't be a bad idea to put a guy who's only averaging 8 or 9 minutes in front of him, because all he's doing is taking up 8 of the 48 minutes at that position. And then the main guy comes in and takes up the rest for the most part. These are going to be the things that make this league very interesting in coming seasons. The salary cap, filling out the 48-minute box score, 48 minutes per position. It's going to make for a very interesting league. And I played in a league like this many years ago. It was a lot of fun. And they only folded because it was so much work for them. They were trying to make money at it, whereas I'm only running this small league with just a limited number of teams, so it's manageable for me. I can handle it. And this league is going to go forward no matter what. That's what I'm committed to do. I'm committed to keep this league going for the long run. So with that, I will let you guys go from a very chilly San Diego morning. It's only 9 in the morning, so I expect it to warm up at least a little bit over the next 3 hours. Maybe get out and get a bike ride and keep that blood flowing so that I can stay alive long enough to keep this league going for many years to come. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later.